Dan Kim signed up very early this year to speak at chapel. And those of you who were smart enough to come to Vespers last year when he was the speaker realize that Dan is incredibly smart. He's very clever and funny. But he has a way of weaving into his narrative the deep search for meaning of what is right and what is true. Dan has worked very hard in this speech, and I thank Ms. McCabe for helping him with his speech. Please give your respectful attention to Dan and stay focused so you don't miss the jokes as well as the point. But before we hear from Dan, Peter Bierce is going to share a reading with us.
Hello, this is a poem by the great poet Kendrick Lamar. Everybody looking at you crazy, crazy. What you gonna do? What you gonna do? Lift up your head and keep moving, or let the paranoia haunt you, haunt you. Peace to fashion police, I wear my heart on my sleeve, let the runway start. You know the miserable do love company. What do you want from me and my scars? Everybody lack confidence, everybody lack confidence. How many times our potential was anonymous? How many times the city making me promises? So I promise this. Kendrick. And now for your chapel speaker, Dan Kim.
It was a couple weeks ago, a Wednesday, I believe. I had a Harvard interview. So the interviewer tells me before I began, "This is the perfect moment for you to humble brag, Dan." But come to think about it, I believe that this chapel is an even better opportunity for me to humble brag. I would like to clarify, I'm not here to humble brag. That's not my primary objective anyway. Also, anyone can have an interview with Harvard as long as they pay the $75 application fee. To further prove my intentions, you know what, I'll just completely disregard my ethos, just destroy my reputation from the get-go. I'll tell you an embarrassing story. So, one day I was casually discussing Nietzsche's book, Thus Spake Zarathustra, with some folks, just casual day in the life of Dan Kim. The moment he hears the title, Thus Spake Zarathustra, though, Luke Ciancarelli comes up to me. He's like a metal detector, but he only pings in hotbeds of intellectual activity. So Luke comes up and he just remarks in all his intellectual zeal with just his fire. It's like, "I can tolerate Nietzsche, but the book Ein Buch für und keinen, I want to find them and burn them all." Like, I pretended to know what he was talking about. I really didn't, and I just told him that, well, I haven't really read that one yet, but I definitely heard about it. It sounded quite interesting. I'll get on that. And Luke just shakes his head, looks me in the eyes, and he says, "Oh, Dan, I was talking about the same book you were talking about. I was referring to Thus Spake Zarathustra in its original German title." I was like, how does he even know that? That's why. Piece of advice, when you discuss philosophy at all, make sure you know the title of the book in its original language, because there are intellectual behemoths like me who do know such things and just smile and nod if you don't know what's going on. Anyways, back to the Harvard interview. I tried my hardest to give an impression. I knew a lot, did a lot of things. A lot of buzzwords flew around during the interview. Multivariable calculus, leadership, extracurriculars, leadership, Fortunato, leadership. What do you stand for? I like to consider that interview a pretty solid one. Bummer I can show him my leadership video to really drive it home. Leadership. I thought I had a pretty good grasp on what leadership meant. Ability to lead, to serve by example, display initiative, to sacrifice oneself for the collective, all that good stuff. I've led on multiple occasions and even gave a leadership seminar last summer in Cambodia. Nonetheless, I was curious about what my interviewer had to say about the subject. After all, he was a graduate of Harvard Business School. While I sought insight, truthfully, I expected from him another cliche response. The answer, however, wasn't the one I was expecting. I know you don't hear this often, Dan, but the most important component of leadership, you have to believe in yourself. believe in myself. What do you mean believe in myself? I believe in myself, don't I? I can be self-assured and even cocky if the need arises, as many peers can attest. But upon further introspection, I was confronted with the inescapable reality that I really did not believe in myself. Allow me to provide a little background. Growing up, I wasn't exactly the coolest kid in the block. I was fat, I was bullied wherever I went. No one ever liked me, no girls liked me, rejection was a part of life. I never really once liked my reflection in the mirror. I mean, I'm repulsive. And I was never really truly a part of a group. So in recess, I would read Macbeth, while other people would play their inclusive games of soccer and tetherball, only to stop to approach me to call me a loser or a nerd and the usual. And towards that process, I began to always doubt myself. I'd love to say that I am a better state now, but not by much. Q Dan came over the past 3 years who would rarely eat dinner in the dining hall. So, after sports, I would just be in my room, binge watching Netflix alone. Then I'd get really hungry, but then there's nothing more anxiety-inducing than going to the dining hall. It's like a runway where everyone's judging you, and to satisfy their bloodthirsty expectations to see you fall, you drop your fork once in a while. I tell them it's intentional, but it's really not. Then you try to find your friends, but pretend not to, so you can avoid the shame. Then you finally find them and sit down, of course, as all your friends are finished eating. And you beg them to stay, but, you know, they only sometimes do. So, I order pizza. So I'll have a large pizza, half cheese, half chicken bacon ranch, and chicken wings, thank you. And when the pizza comes, 30 minutes or 2 hours, depending on which pizza it is. And I try to bring it back to my room, and someone like Javier, you know, he sniffs the scent of Italian somehow, he peeks out his nose. Leftovers? There will be no leftovers. Okay. And I just go back to my room and proceed to devour the whole pie by myself. That was just one of the ways I sought to avoid the abyss that would never stop staring at me, even when I would refuse to stare back. Just like this hole right here, it's creepy. I was afraid, and I still am, of the aspects of my life, my being, and the world around me that did not, should not make sense. I didn't want to be dragged down to the abyss. Therefore, from a young age, I sought to eschew the irrational and choose to be logical and rational whenever possible. Every inquiry had to have a rational solution, every phenomenon a logical answer. I analyzed my every thoughts and behaviors to assess whether or not they stemmed from justifiable rationale, and those that did not, which were many, I punished myself for them. And I strove to be stoic and swayed by nothing and by no one. This made me a party pooper on many occasions. So when I was in preschool, it started quite early. I told this in my English class, I was so sick of the whole Santa Claus spiel, the ignorant flock of sheep that was my peers was eating up. How could anyone believe anything so stupid? So when quote-unquote Santa came to class Christmas Day, heralded by cheers of the naive little ones, I really couldn't handle it much longer. I mean, this guy didn't even put in effort to have a fake belly. This guy was like skinny, young, and he guessed my least favorite vegetables incorrectly. And the kids somehow still believed that this guy was a real deal from the North Pole. So I did what I had to do. I declared on the spot that Santa isn't real, and I yanked the guy's fake beard off. Tears were shed that night, innocence shattered. In reminiscence, I'm not exactly proud of that moment. Yeah, I was that guy. Though I was not the only one who resorted to the bulwarks of logic against the assaults of the irrational throughout history. A few of the famous logicians, Gödel, Cantor, obsessed over logic to defy the throes of madness encroaching upon them, although this pursuit of theirs only ironically led to their further lunacy. Society is often reactionary and radical towards the irrational. Plato in his Republic portrays Socrates to have banished poets from the state for their adherence to emotions and impulses over reason, because who needs emotions and impulses, which is irrational itself. You see, the irrational begets the irrational, but this is a point rarely noticed. So for me and the aforementioned figures, an adherence to the irrational only spiraled us down further into what we feared most. I am not decrying rationalism and reason by any means. Look where it got us so far. Technology, medical advances, the ability to debate without pulling each other's hair out. No more burning, which is at the stake. All those lab experiments you have to do for science. I always get 4 5s. You know. But I appreciated logic not for its own sake, but as a means to an end. And it is not a sufficient defense mechanism. For me, it is reason I hid behind, but for others, for some of you, it may be work, your relationships, this obsession towards success, etc. So I was too preoccupied with hiding behind logic, though, that I failed to recognize the abyss engulfing me from behind. For the assaults of the irrational, love, depression, emotional outbursts, so on and so forth, they are strong. You can be aware that love is caused by the release of chemical substances such as oxytocin and dopamine, thanks Ms. McCabe, but that awareness doesn't necessarily cushion the fall when you actually do fall in love. I know this firsthand. Ask anyone who lived in Inslee my freshman year how I would just go around and groan. Be like, what's wrong? They're like, she'll never love me back.
Should I give up or should
And I hate how I can so easily become a thrall to my passions, even as I am cognizant of their inherent folly and stupidity. But I see that my emotions and impulses, as unreasonable or hindering they may be, are what make me human. You see, we aren't robots. We are human. We are the offspring of primal instinct and an oversized frontal lobe. Much of what we consider irrational within ourselves stem from our biological wirings. They are what drives us on. They breathe life into our form. And it is not until I accepted this truth that the irrational no longer became a gaping black hole in my chest, but rather a part of myself. A part of myself to be controlled and checked as I had before, but okay to be embraced as my own. Much of humanity's greatest contributions to the world, the arts humanities, are products of the irrational. We wouldn't have Taylor Swift's music if she did not choose to express her suffering and emotions through her lyrics, her wounds and vulnerabilities blossoming into art. Happiness, pain, misery, the human feelings we are assailed by on a daily basis, they pass on by. They are chimeras. The present occupies no space. Yet we insist on spending so much time agonizing over fugitive moments that escape us. Why shouldn't we savor hardship as much as celebration when they are both pieces of the invaluable shards of life? In the words of my hedonist brother, because hardship sucks and there's no point to it. Now let me get back to playing League of Legends. It's a great game. Slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, the abject absurdity of trying tragedies, they hurt more because we fail to understand their roots, or absurd that the roots are planted in chaos itself. I bear pain as long as it has meaning, said Haruki Murakami. But does anything truly have meaning? Do senseless massacres have meaning? Do freak accidents, to the unfortunately stark penury of millions, have meaning? No, in the cosmic sense, they bear no deep meaning of significance. But why in the world are we searching for meaning anyways? Don't search for meaning. Create it. Meaning is what us humans have constructed to shed light into this crepuscular void that is our world. You can argue that it is an irrational practice to forge the foundations of logic and purpose on grounds in which there are none. But does it not provide beauty and meaning in our lives? And that is how I resolve the major problem raging within myself. When life throws lemons at my head, I'd better be thankful because lemons are a great source of vitamin C. Did you know that scurvy is the most common disease on college campuses? So, better get your vitamin C. Anyway, I thought, okay, good for me. I solved the problem. In spite of that, I still had a nagging voice whispering into my ear all the same. The words of self-loathing, of incompetence. Irrational words, but not baseless. And even in my pragmatic standpoint, I had strength, but unmissable weaknesses as well. Glaring chinks in my armor. And as a lazy perfectionist, this tortured my soul. For this side, I hated myself. I didn't want to hate myself, so to seek a solution, I tried to investigate what the self truly was, which involved a great deal of leafing through philosophy volumes during study hall instead of actually doing work. Don't judge me. So this is the conclusion I've come to, my interpretation of the self. I could have borrowed words from other great thinkers, but I remember Miss Conforti telling me last year, I don't care what Jacques Lacan has to say, I want something originally Dan Kimian. So I try to synthesize something that's at least remotely my own. It's a work in progress, it's pretty shoddy, but here goes. So we are ships sailing in the ocean, and we are made of two components, the vessel and the cargo. The vessel, the ship, is our identity and our physical being. The cargo, our thoughts and behavior. The ship of Theseus is a philosophical paradox that dates back to Plutarch in the ancient Greek times, who asked, if a ship has all of its components eventually replaced by new ones, one by one, then is a new ship fundamentally the same ship as before? I believe that this paradox can be solved by perdurantism. So perdurantism is a view that individuals have distinct temporal parts throughout its existence. So in layman's terms, each of us are made up of versions of ourselves from infinitely small time slices. The Dan Kim that stood here 10 minutes ago may be completely different Dan Kim who will leave the stage a few minutes later, but in a holistic sense, both are Dan Kim. If I decide to say streak across the stage naked, is the deviancy to be applied to Dan Kim belonging to that specific time slice or Dan Kim as a whole? Regardless, I admit it would be a terrific excuse to use. No, Mr. Mazza, I didn't miss chapel. The version of me an hour ago did, so you should give him attendance warning instead. Gosh, get it right. The thing is, though, whether you are a cruise ship or a shoddy raft made out of bamboo or just a plastic bag drifting through the wind, in a metaphorical sense, it does matter, but what also does is what you are carrying within yourself. For this, I will use the analogy of people walking pets. Let's say everyone, you, me, Mr. Bacon, we all have pets that we take on walks. And usually the pets we walk are all amiable and fluffy, and yet sometimes we decide to walk especially vicious ones. Say you're a pretty friendly person, or at least you think you are, and you are known in the community for taking on walks your golden retriever, who is smelly, but has a great personality that makes up for it, because it's all that matters. And one day, you, for some reason, decide to take outside your hideous pet snail named Gary, who happens to bite everyone he sees, mad snail disease, and your neighbors all flee in terror, and for a couple days, no one dares to visit you. They hush and huddle in fear upon hearing your name, and you ask, why don't they love me? Reality check, they couldn't care less about how great of a person you are. They're more concerned about that snail you brought outside in the first place. That's who you are known in the community now, the evil snail walker. Yeah, boo, be ashamed. Just kidding. I don't want you to feel that bad. Sure, your actions have consequences and the resulting glory or infamy will linger. Such is life. But does being a snail walker, however, define your core self? No, you are not the snail. Remember that you just happen to walk the snail. You are still the same person. You are still the same person who walked the golden retriever. No, the cargo can come and go, but the ship itself will never change. And I decided to place my faith on the ship. I may have committed countless transgressions. I may have failed in my duties. I made mistakes. I may not be the smartest or good-looking. And yes, they are all true. But they are not, though, reasons for me to abandon faith in myself. I choose to believe in myself, my capacity and capabilities, and my inherent drive for righteousness. I choose to put my faith on the ship. Leaky as a ship is, it is what I'll be embarked upon for the rest of my life, and I wouldn't want it to have ended up with any other. I mean, that's not true. I'd much rather be Beyonce than myself, but I don't really have a choice, do I? I love myself, and I sincerely hope you feel the same way. Love yourselves, because you are your own lifelong companions, so better get used to it. I see thousands of potential leaders drowning in despondency and insecurities. I see that the damage disavow their true selves to align with destructive philosophies, but I want to tell them all to believe in themselves. For how can you empathize with others when you cannot resolve the tempest raging within your own heart? How can you start to look towards others when you cannot even look at yourself in the eye? And how can you save the world when you have already forsaken yourself? believe in yourself. Believe in yourself, at least for the sake of others. Despite the optimism of the past few centuries, Sanjay, I do not believe that history and human progress are necessarily guaranteed to be progressive. You know, usually we bet on when flying cars would hit the market. Back then, people would, bet their money on when the world would end. You see, humanity as a collective throughout history has been a blindfolded little kid with a baseball bat trying to hit a piñata. A vast majority of swings so far have missed because the kid is not that smart and he has a blindfold on. A few did hit recently though, so the kid did get an ego boost. But the kid isn't exactly the smartest in the block, as I've said, so more often than not, he hits himself with the bat. Why are we hitting ourselves with a bat? Why is it that for every step forward, another step must be made backwards? Why do we allow history to repeat its vicious cycles? Why are we criticizing our predecessors yet continue to retain their activistic mindsets? Why don't we love others and why don't we love ourselves? I believe that the challenges that plague humanity cannot be solved without pacifying its inner turmoil. According to humanist psychologist Maslow, self-transcendence, or seeking for goals outside one's own needs, cannot occur without self-actualization. And that step starts with each and every one of us. Je suis left shark. I may be clumsy and inept and out of stink, but I am awesome, and I have the power to change the world. Just think about it. We are all left shark. You, Mr. Fortunato, we are left shark. Whether you're a little freshman, a PG, or a 26-year-old still sleeping with a teddy bear. And please never forget that as you leave this chapel. Thank you. Thug life. It's been real, guys. Seniors first.